Welcome to The Explainer. Look, if life is a complex and honestly sometimes super frustrating video game, consider this your ultimate player's guide. Today, we're diving straight into the source code of the human brain. We're going to figure out how to hack our minds and build literally unbreakable mental strength. We're talking ancient philosophy meeting modern psychology. It's going to be a fun one. But first, think about this. Have you ever desperately wanted something, like, I don't know, unlocking a rare achievement in a game, buying that shiny new gadget, or just watching a social media post absolutely blow up with likes? But then, the thrill just vanishes? Almost instantly, right? It's a strangely universal human glitch. We get exactly what we want, and then boom, we feel kind of empty again. So why does that actually happen? Well, that brings us to level 1, the happiness trap. Okay, let's dive into this. There is a massive glitch in our programming when we chase temporary pleasure. It's a concept known as the hedonic treadmill, or hedonic adaptation. Think of it literally like a physical treadmill at the gym. You can run as fast as humanly possible, right? Chasing the next promotion, the next big purchase, or just that next hit of joy. But no matter how hard you sprint, your baseline happiness stays in the exact same place. Our brains are basically hardwired to adapt to our circumstances. This protects us from being permanently overwhelmed, sure, but it also guarantees that no amount of pure pleasure is ever going to permanently satisfy us. And to prove just how powerful this treadmill actually is, check out this landmark study from 1978 by Brickman, Coates, and Janoff Bullman. They looked at two groups of people who went through extreme life changes. We're talking massive lottery winners on one side and victims of devastating accidents resulting in paralysis on the other. And what they found was honestly shocking. After the initial euphoria, or that profound grief, completely wore off, both groups eventually just returned to their average baseline levels of everyday happiness. That shiny or totally new reality simply became the boring new normal. All right, moving on to level 2, bouncing back versus leveling up. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the actual dictionary definition of resilience. When that treadmill of constant pleasure breaks down, everybody says, oh, you just need to be more resilient. But think about what that actually means. The definition is literally the power to return to the original form, or elasticity. It just means bouncing back to exactly the way you were before the bad thing happened. But we have to ask ourselves, is just getting back to normal really the ultimate goal here? Definitely not. And that's where Nassim Nicholas Taleb's game-changing concept of anti-fragility comes in. Let's compare the two. If a package is fragile, right, it shatters when you drop it. If it's robust or resilient, it survives the drop totally unchanged. But, and here's the magic, if a package is anti-fragile, it actually gets stronger because you dropped it. Resilience just resists shocks. Anti-fragility literally requires those shocks to level up its capability. Taleb sums it up perfectly here. The resilient resists shocks and stays the same. The anti-fragile gets better. Think about human muscle for a second. Muscle is inherently anti-fragile. You literally have to stress it out and tear it down at the gym for it to grow back stronger. That's exactly what we want for our minds. We don't just want a mind that survives a tough day. We want to build an anti-fragile mind that actually thrives on volatility, mistakes, and challenges. Which brings us to level 3, Jedi training your mind. So how do we actually construct this anti-fragile mind? Well, if you remember the original Star Wars trilogy, think about Luke Skywalker training on the swamp planet Dagobah. Yoda is just pushing him to his absolute physical and mental limits, right? Making him do handstands in the mud, levitating rocks, the whole shebang. Now, was Yoda just being annoying? No. He was actually using an ancient Stoic concept called voluntary hardship. He was intentionally introducing controlled stress so Luke could finally tap into his inner strength. Now, the good news is we don't need to move to a swamp to practice this. We can use safe and sane voluntary hardship right in our daily routines. It basically means purposely making life just a little bit uncomfortable. Skip the hot water and take a cold shower. Leave your winter jacket at home on a chilly day. Fast for a single meal. Or, my personal favorite, just throw your smartphone in a drawer for the entire weekend. By exposing yourself to these really manageable doses of discomfort, you are actively conditioning your mind against future hardships that you can't plan for. And this kind of Jedi training really breaks down into 3 simple steps. Step 1, you actively choose to be uncomfortable. Step 2, your mind adapts to the hardship. This proves to yourself, hey, I can actually survive without luxury. And then step 3, when the hardship is over, you experience this profound, deep appreciation for the things you usually just take for granted.
Doing this cycle actually helps you step completely off that hedonic treadmill we talked about earlier.
Okay, level 4, controlling what you can.
So the crucial point is, as we condition ourselves against hardship, we really have to master the core rules of emotional processing. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus hit the nail on the head when he said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The Stoics knew way back then that trying to control external events, the weather, the economy, what other people think of you, it's just a one-way ticket to misery. True emotional resilience is built by identifying exactly what is in our control. So our reactions, our choices, our attitudes, and then just completely letting go of all the rest.
When we look at modern psychology, practicing this kind of control boils down to a few daily habits of mental strength. First, it means developing a real growth mindset, where you view failures as stepping stones, not dead ends. It means regulating your emotions, and I don't mean shoving them into a tiny box to suppress them, but mindfully managing them through things like breathing or journaling. And honestly, it demands self-compassion, because you simply cannot be mentally strong if your own inner monologue is constantly tearing you down.
And finally, level 5, the ultimate quest, eudaimonia. All right, this brings us to the final boss of our explainer. Because if we aren't just blindly chasing the fleeting, empty highs of that hedonic treadmill, what exactly are we fighting for? Well, the ancient Greeks had a word for it, eudaimonia. It literally translates to good spirit, and it basically means true human flourishing, living an objectively desirable life. You see, unlike basic happiness, which is mostly just about feeling good right in this exact moment, Aristotle argued that eudaimonia requires virtuous activity. It's about living a life of deep meaning, in actually integrating your personal struggles into a much larger, noble purpose. The goal isn't to just avoid pain, it's to use that pain to fuel a life truly worth living. Fast forward to today, and modern positive psychology has basically mapped this out into several clear dimensions, and they look totally different from basic hedonism. Eudaimonia involves deep self-discovery. It involves perceiving the development of your absolute best potentials, holding on to a profound sense of purpose, and throwing yourself into activities with just intense involvement. It's active, it's forward-moving, and it is deeply, deeply fulfilling. And listen, this isn't just some dusty ancient theory. It is incredibly relevant right now. Recent studies focusing specifically on Generation Z show that this exact concept, finding a deep meaning in life, acts as a massive psychological buffer. For a generation dealing with unprecedented digital exposure, constant social comparison, and wild academic pressure, simply having a clear sense of life purpose dramatically lowers anxiety and distress. It's a real game changer. And this brilliantly illustrates the impact. The data here is just so clear. Individuals who report having high life meaning, they show significantly better emotion regulation. They use adaptive coping strategies instead of just, shutting down entirely. And their overall psychological distress is remarkably lower. So finding your purpose, it's not just a nice, fluffy, philosophical idea. It is a vital, protective psychological shield against the absolute chaos of the modern world.
So, game over or continue? Let's move to and see how this builds our final recap. As we reach the end of our guide, let's review the ultimate set of mental cheat codes we've unlocked for the road ahead. First, recognize the game and step off that hedonic treadmill of endless consumption. Second, don't just bounce back. Build anti-fragility so that the shocks literally make you stronger. Third, practice safe and sane voluntary hardship to properly condition your mind. And finally, stop chasing temporary fleeting happiness and start pursuing the deep, enduring, flourishing of eudaimonia. Ultimately, the controller is in your hands. So the only question left for us is this: will you stay comfortably numb on that endless treadmill? Or will you actively choose the intentionally hard path to build an unbreakable, anti-fragile mind? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next level.